I'm going to show you how to do a continuous placket, the way that I teach in my classes. I have found that if you draw everything on here, it makes it very simple. When I do my classes and we're doing a dress, I make everyone stop at the same time and put the placket in, because I feel like if they go home with their placket in their dress, they'll finish their dress, because this is what stops people a lot of times. So I'm going to show you my way, and I think it's pretty easy and it's pretty clear. This is a continuous placket. There's no seam in the back of the skirt. It's just a slit, and then you have to add fabric to the slit to finish off that raw edge. And so one side will go over the other one, and that's helps get into the dress a lot easier. Okay, so then there's a couple of things that you need to do. One is you're going to cut a strip of fabric 2.5 inches wide. Now, my placket, I like it to be 1 inch finished, because I like it to be about the same size as my facing is on my bodice. So that's why I like mine a little wider. If you like yours tiny, and a lot of people do, you just make this smaller. Just whatever you like. And you're going to draw on the right side of the fabric, on both sides, you're going to draw 1/4 inch seam allowance on both sides. And to this day, I draw everything on here. I don't take it for chance, okay? So you're going to draw 1/4 inch seam allowance, and you'll fold this in half first. Let me do it with this one. You're going to fold it in half first, wrong sides together, and put a crease in the top. And then on one side, you will fold in 1/4 inch to the wrong side. That's going to be the piece that you finally whip down. And so now you have your placket pieces ready. Now your skirt is next. On the top of your, the center, find the center of your back skirt, and I draw a line 6 inches down. I like my plackets to be 6 inches. And on either side of the top up here, I draw a 1/4 inch line, because when it starts out, it's going to be a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I have 3 lines, a 6 inch and a 1/4 on each side. Then you'll connect the dots. Take your ruler and put it up here by the 1/4 inch and draw a line down to the bottom. Same on this side. Put your ruler by the 1/4 inch and draw a line down to the bottom. Now you have something that looks like a dart. Now we're going to sew. And we're going to sew on the outside V lines. We're going to sew down, and here's where a lot of people make their mistake, is they don't put 1 stitch over. So as you sew down, you're going to pivot, and you're going to sew 1 stitch over, and then you're going to sew back up the other side. This 1 stitch over allows you to trim all the way down to the bottom. Sometimes if we don't do that, we get one seam on top of another, and then you can't trim all the way down to that point. So on this one, now we're going to cut on our center line, right down the middle, and we're going to be very careful, and we're going to cut right down to where we sewed. We don't want to cut through that straight stitch. We just want to cut to it. Okay? Now let's get out our placket piece, and we're going to place it. Let me put it sideways. It's easier for me. There we go. What's easier for Mama makes Mama happy, right? All right, so that's right side up. And we want to put the placket and the skirt right sides together. So I'm going to start up here at the end. One thing too is I cut this is 6 inches, which would have been 12. It's cut. I always cut this a little longer so that I know that I have enough. I don't have to worry. So right here, we're going to match up our 1/4 inch with our 1/4 inch. So the seam line and the drawn line should match up right here at the beginning. Now we're going to match up all the way across. We're going to match up our sewing line with our drawn line. So you just lift up and see if it matches. Lift up, make sure it matches. Because never, ever, ever in your whole entire life can this point be even with the fabric on the placket piece. It can't. It has to angle down. So now we're right here at the point. So we want to put the point on the line right there, and then we'll continue up the other side, matching our sewn line with our drawn line. Now, what makes it easier to fiddle around here is to bring this up straight, like so, and then drop it down so that it's in a V shape. You see what I mean? Now all those wrinkly pieces are out of your way. My friend Peggy Dilbone taught me that when she does a serger placket, she found it was easier for people to have this out of the way. That's just an easy way to show. Now, that's the way we find out how things, a lot of times things need to be easier is as we're teaching classes. Because if somebody can't get it and they fail at it, then they're upset. So you want people to be successful. I want y'all to be successful. And that's why I'm showing you this. So now I'm going to repin, pinning just the fabric. To the placket, the skirt to the placket. And we're going to sew right on this line all the way across. So just pick that up and see how much easier it is. All we have to do is sew right across there, and it makes it a lot easier. So I'm going to go sew that, and I will be right back. Okay, now I've sewn all the way across here, like that. So now our placket is ready to press. And what we'll do is we're going to press our seam allowance towards the placket. Hopefully my iron is still on. These darn things that shut off. But then I don't really want it staying on all the time because it wears them down. How many irons have you killed? I've killed a lot of irons in my sewing time. Okay, so now we've got that pressed. And then the next thing is to bring, because this is already turned under, is to bring this folded edge already over to the sewing line. And then we can actually sew by hand. If you want to sew by hand, you can sew it by hand, or if you want to sew it down by machine, you can sew it by machine. Either one, doesn't matter to me which way you do it. Everybody has their favorite way. I like to turn mine over and sew right next to the edge right here. I usually just sew right there in my placket. The one that I did, you can see it. See, I just sewed right next to that, and that catches everything underneath. So that's very, very easy. So I'm going to press this a little bit. And I'll go top stitch this one, and then we'll finish it up. Okay, now I've top stitched it down, and you see it's caught the back of it. So now all that's left to do is, let's give this a press. The right side flips back, like so, and it lays over the top of the left side. There we go. And with with any good fortune at all, everything lines up. But see, you don't have any, now I've put a different color in here. You don't have any pleats down here at the bottom. It's all nice and flat. So the very last thing that you want to do is sew a 45-degree angle right across here. And that, what it does, that keeps the placket from flipping out this way. And it also keeps the strength. You're not really pulling against the bottom of this placket. You'll be pulling against up here. So it helps with the strength of it. And this one I've already sewn, so you can look at that. So it's just a 45-degree angle right there. And that just helps with the strength of the placket, keeps it from ripping here, because that could easily happen. I'm sure you know that. So that's my way of doing a continuous placket. I hope you try it, because it's a lot easier. Just remember to draw everything on there and you'll be okay.